When I was talking to my principal about transportation, she talked about how her biggest job as an administrator is to make sure that students are safe, and that during this time of the day it's the most stressful and anxiety provoking for her, because there are so many different students and so many different ways that students are getting home. So at our school we have a little under 800 people, and these students get home in various different ways, from bus to car rider to daycare. So we have about 100 students that are car riders or walkers with their parents. We have about 600 that go on the bus, and then the rest go to after school daycare, which a lot of them provide their own transportation, or people who come to the school to walk with the students. When I was reading Bullying at Al's article, I noticed they're trying to promote an active transportation program, and I think that would be a great idea to do at Newport. But I also noticed that some of the drawbacks that they noticed were, the reasons why people continue to drive, parents, was because of convenience, also weather. When it's raining, they're not going to let their 8-year-old walk to school or take the bus or ride their bike. So I noticed that would probably be very similar at Newport. Also, the convenience factor. So parents, marked in that article, they said that they drove their student to school or they picked them up because they were on their way somewhere else. And I think that would be very similar at Newport. Even though I would love to have a more active transportation, such as walking or riding your bike. The hurricane recently has really put a stress on our transportation, and that was largely like a lot of our conversation about transportation was how you have to adapt and change based on students' different addresses, and just keeping up with transportation changes throughout the day, address changes, new buses. A lot of students were displaced and trying to figure out different busing for them in different areas that they are now living, and how can we get them to and from school safely. So she talked a lot about that. And I think one of the biggest things is, with such a big school with so many students, just keeping track of all of those changes throughout the day, and throughout the year, their address changes. You have to have such a great office staff, whether it's a secretary, your AP, whoever it is who's keeping track of that. You have to make sure it's documented, and that way for sure, okay, this is how they're getting home, this is how they're coming to school, this is where they're living right now. And I just think that as an administrator, we have to make sure that we are in charge, but we have people that know what they're doing when it comes to transportation, and that we really trust to keep documentation of where students are going and what they need to do. This past week, I actually accepted a job as an assistant principal at my school, so I know that transportation will be a huge task for me to take on, but I think that having such a good foundation right now at our school, it will be a really seamless transition, and just making sure that, again, I trust those people that are in the office that are taking all those changes. And then again, with the teachers, trying to make sure we're coordinating and making sure everyone's getting home the way they were supposed to, instead of getting on the bus when they're supposed to be a car rider, or vice versa, is going to be one of the biggest points of my day. Of this is the 30 minutes at the end of the day where I have to really focus in and make sure that everyone is getting home safely. So those were my takeaways from my conversation about transportation, and I'm looking forward to starting this new position and really trying to hone in all my skills about transportation.